The conversation on balance is a constant argument. Go in any forum, Reddit thread, or Google search, and there are loads of conversations in RPG balance, and specifically, combat balance. It's historically been a conversation throughout our TTRPG history, so I, myself, have decided to tackle this issue as well and throw my GM hat into the ring. So, in today's video, we'll be covering why I stopped balancing encounters in tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. This will go over my personal philosophy, how I understand balance in tabletop role-playing games, and what might a quote-unquote unbalanced encounter even look like. Also, why I think you can have just as much fun in an unbalanced encounter as long as your approach comes correct. First off, what do we mean by balance? Because balance would depend technically on the tabletop role-playing game. In 5e, that would be the challenge rating. In other games, it might be the player to monster ratio, or it could be having a group of characters that can tackle several problems for their game. So when I think of balance, I separate it into two subsections. First is character balance. This means no one character can hog all of the limelight. Thus all classes, races, features, occupations, abilities, and skills are comparable in usefulness and utility to the game. Secondly is encounter balance. It's when an encounter, i.e. combat, adventure, investigation, or etc., is interesting and provides multiple avenues to resolving conflict. And I'm sure you might be thinking, that definition is hella wordy. Can't it just be more simple? And no, because RPGs are an art, not a science. Things are up for interpretation, especially when talking about philosophy and our perceptions in role-playing games. So I think balance lives and dies by the story and the GM and players craft that together. This balance is thus informed by the mechanics or lack thereof in the game. That means, and this is always paramount in all role-playing games, communication is key. Because balance, as you could have gleaned, is not just combat. Even if combat is a main part of the game, balance can come in so many forms: investigation, adventuring, social encounters, and combining all those together into your tabletop role-playing game. Thus, an unbalanced encounter can likely be contributed by these two reasons. 1. A narrow definition of balance. For example, calculating a balanced encounter in 5e CR calculator can generate a balanced encounter, but that same encounter can be both super difficult or super easy depending on variables like magic items and player knowledge of mechanics. Secondly, not providing a variety of encounters with multiple solutions to the problem. Encounters can and should be dynamic. Just like in real life, there's no one solution to a problem. While games will lean to certain solutions due to mechanics, having multiple options will allow for two things: a diversity in terms of solutions, and every character being able to contribute without feeling weaker or undervalued. But I'm getting ahead of myself just a bit. Let's roll back to our discussion on a narrow definition of balance. We need to do more than believe balance to be only combat, because that narrow definition is limiting the gaming experience. Balance, or lack thereof, should include venturing, investigation, and social encounters, to name a few. In each of these respective encounters, they can utilize player resources and should allow for all players to contribute. For instance, while the players are investigating and navigating the politics of the city's monarchy, they need to get into an invite-only upper echelon party. This encounter is perfect for the socialite and can be balanced around the players' weaknesses and strengths. Maybe the bruiser type character can watch guard, while the intellectual could spend their time studying on the history or famous/key NPCs at the party to inform the socialite. So consider your ideas of balance and how the game pushes some mechanics forward. A game with lots of combat is suggesting you to put combat balance as a priority. Specific ways to do that and also include homebrew as needed. Likewise, switch over to a system that might have a robust mechanics or a GM that might accommodate players wanting a particular experience. Overall, just expanding your horizons can help you stop worrying about whether this encounter is balanced or not. To add, consider the logic of the encounter. If your adventurers are wandering a densely packed city and they encounter a Zorn all of a sudden, just casually running around there, then it doesn't make any sense. And even if it is a balanced encounter for their fictional CR level in this game, it doesn't make sense and shouldn't be included. So consider the logic of the encounter as well as the goals of the characters when crafting that encounter, and the goals of the monsters as well. On to point number 2, variety to problems and solutions. You're going to need a variety of problems as well as solutions when players get into encounters. Prior, I used to over-prep for encounters and or situations. I often thought I needed to balance everything. Every problem needed several written out solutions. Every battle needed multiple avenues that ranged from very hard to super easy. Cities needed several NPCs with various backstories, and several plot hooks. Well, I say, throw away all that bullcrap. Instead of trying to predict 100 plus options, worry about the now and prepare for the immediate. For instance, you're playing a Star Wars campaign where you're playing mercenaries and scoundrels of the Outer Rim. Your job is to find the bounty of a hotshot crime lord who's been hiding out in this seedy city. You all approach a cantina knowing you can gather information there. This situation can be approached in so many different ways as a player and the GM, if you will it. Maybe a player can hack into a computer terminal on the cantina to track all the people who have visited in the past month. Another player could talk to the people in the cantina and meet an informant. Another player could threaten maybe some of the local grunts that might be working for the crime lord. In this example, you don't need to think of 100 plus examples. Just present the encounter and some general NPCs that would make sense to be there. Let the logic make sense in relation to the story of the game. The players can choose how to approach that situation after all, so just let them approach it. And if the players need help, you can ask them if they need any suggestions. So is balance necessary? Maybe. There is nothing wrong with an unbalanced encounter or your own idea of a balanced encounter. Those terms have fluidity and will mean a lot of different things to a lot of players and GMs. It is thus best to talk and establish what that might look like for everyone at the table. And this is especially important if your players and GMs are veterans or already familiar with tabletop role-playing games. Whereas if they are not familiar with TTRPGs, use logic. Don't throw an adult red dragon at a level 3 party in 5e without warning of the major danger that can cause. If you're going to do this, tell them severity. Show them the severity of their actions and what will happen if they fail. Logic should be the key thing we take away from when we're balancing encounters or creating encounters. The party, I think, should enter encounters with a wide variety of strong, weak, big, and all sorts of enemies and opponents, and obstacles. Not every encounter may be something they are equipped to handle. Establish that fundamental, and I think the question of balance goes from a matter of how to win the game, and rather to creating encounters that are fun, engaging, and allow all players to shine. So no, I don't think you need to use a CR encounter, but I also think you should be practical. Of course, I could be very well wrong. The question of balance is a constant debate. Do you balance your encounters? If so, how do you do it? If not, why don't you? Let me know down below in the comment section. But what if you're looking for a game that forgoes combat balance entirely? What if you wanted to go back to the classics of Dungeons & Dragons? Or, well, rather a redux of that. Well, Dungeon Crawl Classics is the perfect homage to old school games and is a fun, innovative game that you really gotta go check out over here. And as always, I'm your average everyday queer host, Blurry Disposition. Y'all, have an awesome day. Ciao.